The second coming of Christ is a subject that fascinates us. Everyone tends to have lots of questions and comments about it. Well, when we want to research something, there's a basic analysis technique of asking who, what, when, where, and why. But there are two ways to ask these questions. In one method, we often externalize Christ's coming as if it's some movie we are watching. This leads to a waste of time or lots of worry. It's not a personal call to action. But the other way is to ask those questions in the light of Advent. We can see them as an eternal call to challenge and prepare rather than worry. So today, let's explore the who, what, when, where, and why. We can consider the useless versions of those questions that consume a lot of society or our time, and maybe consider an alternate version of each question that can help us have a holy Advent season. So who? The question that gets asked and debated is, who will be saved? Whose sins are more egregious? Whose political party is correct? Even within the church, we debate who is more worthy, more pious, more reverent. Now, I'm not suggesting a relativist approach. There are some courses of action that are better than others. But the problem is when we get into these who debates, we're usually not looking within ourselves, but rather more seeking to feel superior to others. The tendency is to find a small group of people who agree with us and just criticize other people. It's the wrong who question. Here is a better who question for Advent. Who is coming? When we take time to focus on who is coming, it changes how we personally prepare. So imagine a lazy weekend. Maybe some dirty dishes still in the sink, some kids' socks on the floor, mail and old papers dumped on the counter. We're going to get to it. We're wearing mismatched sweats and just watching some football. Our kid says the usual neighborhood kid is coming over. We don't even bat an eye and just keep watching the Bronco game. It's just the neighborhood kid. That's who's coming. But now imagine someone a little more esteemed announces their impending arrival. Maybe an old friend who just happens to be passing through town calls unexpectedly. Maybe grandma making that unexpected visit. Maybe a father's going to swing by and watch the game with us. Well, what happens then? Well, maybe you haven't exercised in weeks, but you are now moving like an Olympic sprinter. Like Braveheart, you're rallying every family member to scrub the kitchen, cram those papers somewhere, and throw on better clothes. The who matters and calls us to action. Jesus is the who that is coming. Do we prepare with that level of urgency? Are we ready for Jesus? Are we excited to see him at communion today? Jesus is the who. What is the next question we can focus on? Now again, the more things you hear out in the world is, what are the things that will happen as a precursor to end times? Everybody likes to talk about that. Every time there's an earthquake, a war, a hurricane, some political decision we don't like, or some new technology like AI, many are quick to point that this is the sign of the end times. But isn't all that more just to soothe ourselves as we deal with the anxiety of the unknown? Let's look at a better what question. What things in my life are not preparing me for my end? What things can I cut out? St. Paul gives us some items in today's second reading. He tells us to not waste time in promiscuity, lust, rivalry, jealousy, and other provisions of the flesh. Rather, we are to put on the armor of light and conduct ourselves properly. So as we enter Advent, what is one negative thing we can work on giving up this Advent to prepare ourselves? So now to when. That's the big one, isn't it? When is our end? Now, wouldn't it be nice if at our birth we came out with an expiration date stamped right on our bottom? Looks like I expire in May 2057, so I'm good for a while. Well, I don't think that's how it works. I guess you could ask your doctor next time you see him, but I don't think it'd be helpful either to have that expiration date. And as far as when will the world end, well, I think every generation to date assumed it was their lifetime. People dig through numbers looking for some complex mathematical formula that is more elusive than the last digits of pi. They turn to astronomical events like comets and star appearances, or pour through the Bible or any other historical text they can piece together. This when question is perhaps the most discussed, but perhaps the silliest of our time. We already have the answer. We just don't like it. It is very specifically said in today's gospel that, "For at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." It's that simple. We're also told that only the Father knows this timing. So we're wasting our time on this when question. How about a better when question? When will we take some actions to help others and spread the gospel this Advent? When can be now. Don't we often put off when because we're waiting for some grandiose effort? Who's ever had that lottery discussion at home? What we're going to do when we finally win the big jackpot? I've done that, right? When we win the Powerball, we'll donate enough so we can help the diocese build a new church. Or when I get that promotion and pay off the mortgage, the first thing we'll do is send money to the homeless shelter. Or when I retire, I'll dedicate time to the church. Well, St. Mother Teresa once said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." We don't need to wait for the big things. That's when whenever becomes never. Forget $20 million. How about carving out an extra $20 this Advent by giving up something and hand that to a poor person and smile or make a donation? Never mind waiting for a retirement that might never happen. Find a small task to help out around the church community. There's always something around here. I know that Christmas Eve we got a huge mass at the event center, and the day before we could always use a few people for an hour or two to help decorate. Or maybe after the service, we need 30 to 45 minutes if you could help drag the stuff back. It's a small thing. You might be going there anyway. That's a small thing you could do this Advent. And it's a tangible way to do a small thing with great love. And it's a way to evangelize to the 1,000 people we'll probably see there, many of which who don't regularly come to church. So when can be now? So when in the next 4 weeks can we do a small act of service? Now to the where question. Well, the question that gets debated is, where will the events of the end time start to unfold? Will it be in Israel? Maybe in a power center like here in America? Maybe everywhere at once? Again, does it really matter? We are looking externally with those kinds of questions, and the answers won't be helpful anyway. How about this where question? Where is my heart this Advent? Is it on shopping and parties and school plays? Where can I go take a break and be with Jesus for a bit? Can I rest my heart in a confession service this Advent? Can I go to adoration and sit in silence for a bit? Can I pray with my family sometime at night? Can I take a little time to read the Bible? Where can we spend just a little extra time with the Lord these next 4 weeks? And now to the final question. Why? We tend to use the why questions more rhetorically as an outcry. Why is all this so hard to understand? Why is there so much suffering? Why hasn't the end come already? Well, we won't get definitive answers to those things. We know that. But here is one why question we can answer today. Why am I holding back from spreading the joy of Christ to others this Advent. Another St. Mother Teresa quote, "Every time you smile at someone, it is an act of love, a gift to that person, a beautiful thing." Something simple. So today we'll end Mass by saying, "Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life." Let's start this Advent today by smiling at the people we meet. Let's leave today and simply share the joy of Christ in this small manner. Why not?